The anime of Kaiju No. 8 had just ended, and I thought it would be the right time for me to offer some critiques. If you somehow know nothing about Kaiju No. 8 and yet stumble upon this video, hi. Let me introduce the synopsis, and for others, you can skip this part. Kaiju No. 8 is about a 30-year-old man, Hibino Kafka, who lives in a world in which monsters regularly cause disasters. His hometown got destroyed exactly because of that. In view of this, Kafka have always wanted to be part of the Japan Anti-Kaiju Defense Force. He chases this goal with his childhood friend, Ashiro Mina. But as time goes by, it is clear that he doesn't have the potential. He constantly fails in his later round of exam when he applies to join the defense force. Meanwhile, his childhood friend climbs up the ladder unexpectedly fast. She even becomes the captain of 1st Division. The gap between them is getting larger and larger. Most importantly, he's getting too old. There's an age limit to join the defense force. And Kafka had long passed the limit. He had no choice but to give up on his dream and worked in a company that cleans up kaiju corpses. This was supposed to be the end-all be-all. But due to Japan's low birth rate, the defense force extended the age limit to 33 years old. Suddenly, Kafka has the chance to try one last time. And just when we think things cannot have a more surprising turn, Kafka is mysteriously given the power to be kaiju. So that is the basic premise. Now let's get started to the main topic, the lost potential of Kaiju No. 8. The reason why I want to talk about Kaiju No. 8 are honestly complicated, but I think it has a lot to do with the very first moment the anime was released, because the discourse around it expressed unusual concern. Usually, when a manga is adapted into an anime, people will say that the anime production will screw up the original source material. But from what I've gathered, this time people are suggesting that the first season of the anime will be fine, but the manga itself will screw up the future seasons. In addition, there are some opinions about the protagonist acting too childish. He doesn't seem to be at the age of 32. So me, who knew nothing about Kaiju No. 8, decided to judge it for myself. I watched the anime and then caught up with the manga to chapter 111. And from what I can tell, I would say I agree with the general concern. But most of them miss the point when they say Kafka is too childish. There's a more in-depth way to analyze the situation. Moreover, I think the creation behind Kaiju No. 8 tells a sad reality of what artists have to face. This problem is mostly ignored when people talk about its defects. So without further ado, let me start this with the easier issue, the childish problem. People think that Kafka acting too childish is a waste of potential, because we already have plenty of young shonen protagonists. On the other hand, people who like Kafka's personality suggest that age has nothing to do with one's attitude. I personally agree more with the former. If you lay down a target for Chekhov's gun, then why don't you shoot it? It's like revealing your main character is actually an alien, but somehow decides to not talk about biological differences. However, just because I agree Kafka should not be acting like a typical shonen character, it doesn't mean that I have nothing else to add. I decided to note down the number of times when scenes of childish Kafka occur in the anime. What counts as childishness is very subjective, so let me give you some examples. Now, from what I've gathered, scenes of childish Kafka occur 19 times. You can give or take a feel because some scenes may occur only in anime but not manga, so it is not as indicative. Unlike what I've said, there are ambiguities in defining childishness. Like, does expressive emotion directly equal childishness? However, one thing is clear while I was making the list. we are investigating scenes when childish Kafka occurs, but not Kafka being childlike. There's a reason for this distinction. Take one of my previous examples. In these scenes, Kafka needs to go to the toilet, but he does not have genitalia when he's transformed, so he unexpectedly let go of himself. This is similar to silly fart jokes that children would do, but he was not actively trying to be childlike in this scene. He was forced to be an immature guy because the creator thinks that this is the right tone for the story. So when people say Kafka should not act like a man-child, do they really just mean his personal attitude? And how can Kafka not be childish when the setting, the overall structure, is childlike? This is why I think when we are talking about the childish problem, we should also look into the setting to see the wasted potential. In order to do that, we should divide things into internal settings and external settings. First, internal setting. This is what happened inside the story. Since our protagonist is no longer a 16-year-old teenage boy, it opens up an avenue to new forms of relationships. He can be married or have a new wife. The dynamic between him and his parent can also be swapped. When characters are young and naive, it will be the one who are being taken care of. But when you reach your 30s, parents start to retire. The roles of caregiver and the one who is being taken care of get reversed. This new form of storytelling used to be limited simply because the 16-year-old protagonist is too young to have such life experience. But Kafka, being 32, does not grab onto this new form of possibility. In fact, just like many high school anime, he seems to have a crush on the female protagonist, and his parent never shows up. Another interesting point that Kaiju No. 8 misses is the opportunity to talk about career change. From the story, we know that Kafka is a great experienced worker working in a cleaning company. But it's obvious that Kafka will eventually join the defense force, working all over again from the lowest position. So there must be a change in salary. Story about financial stability can totally add an extra layer as to why Kafka can't fail his exam. But the story just chooses to focus on age as the ultimate limit. It turns the topic of career change into a matter of preference. It is not easy to change a job in which you have no experience in when you reach your 30s, especially when that new job can cause life and death situations. Moving on to external setting, it is the logistic and behind the scenes for making manga. Kaiju No. 8 doesn't get published on a regular weekly Shonen Jump. It is published on Shonen Jump Plus. And what's so special about Jump Plus is that it is the platform that hosts titles like Fire Punch and Chainsaw Man. It allows more mature stories to circulate on the site. Creators have a greater range of liberties. But Kaiju No. 8 never fully explored this inherent possibility. What's more, this is just my own speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. But some seem to have thought that every portrayal of Kafka is a meticulous decision that was made by the creator, Matsumoto, and Matsumoto only. However, you don't create manga without help. There's always a voice behind every deadline, a suggestion behind every change. There's always an editor. Nakaji Sejiro is the deputy editor-in-chief in Jump Plus. He has known Matsumoto for 17 years. He was even the editors of every serialized work that Matsumoto has made. On paper, they should be the perfect match. But I suspect it is exactly because they have been working with each other for this long, and Nakaji being such an experienced editor that it causes problems to occur. In 2019, Yahagi Kosuke has a radio show with others. Yahagi was an editor at Weekly Shonen Jump. He was in charge of Naruto for 9 years, and once served as deputy editor-in-chief for Jump. During that show, Yahagi mentioned, having experience is not always good. Jump is a place where young people team up to produce. But when a veteran editor is in charge, we tend to see things objectively and think, that's right, or that's where it belongs. That's why everyone in Jump editorial department leaves the company when they get older. What worried me after hearing this interview is that Kafka shows the same temperament as a 16-year-old boy, not because this is his true nature, but rather this is the formula of shonen manga. This is what's right. And for the sake of this video, I decided to read all the previous serialization that Matsumoto had made. His first work is a comedy about a human girl who got adopted by Cat's God. His second work, Pochikuro, is a fantasy about a young demon boy who meets a human girl. Both of these works are light-hearted, nothing too serious and mature. So having a middle-aged man acting as your protagonist for the first time originally sounds like a step in a new direction. But somehow, they didn't follow through. It's like a beverage company that hypes up a new product, but instead of a new flavor, you get Coke Zero. A change in number, but not a change in content. Worst case scenario, it is an old man who tries to imitate what he thinks a young man acts like. You understand what I mean by this? We need to move on to the next part of the conversation. The sad reality that is hidden in the story. I think it is no-brainer to say it is hard to create a manga. The odds of successfully overcoming the obstacle to be praised are minuscule. You need a lot of passion and energy to do it. And who has this kind of quality? Young people. Oda started writing One Piece when he was 22. Sorachi started writing Gintama when he was 24. Kishimoto started writing Naruto when he was 25. You can even say it is exactly because, in general, manga artists are so young and full of dreams that it makes their shonen protagonists genuine when they talk about friendship and dreams. The creators and the characters are chasing the same goal. To quote one of the guests from the previous radio show, compared to other magazines, I think Jump is where the monsters and inventive works come from. And the people who create those mega hits are all young people, not veterans. Yahagi added that both editors and manga artists will leave once they get old. He also said, as for Jump, we want to have new manga artists to do new series. We put an artist who has never been seen before, an artist who is making his first appearance with this manga on the cover of the new series issue. It is a choice that makes sense from a marketing perspective. If your target audience is young, then a young creator can tap into their mind more easily. They understand the new trend, the common tongue, and the social formation of a youngster way better than an out-of-touch old creator. So going back to Kaiju number 8, do you see where I am going? Do you know why having a 32-year-old protagonist is so special? Quite frankly, do you even know why Kafka is 32? Some would say this is a setup to show this is the last chance for Kafka to pass the exam. They are wrong. You should look for the age of the creator when you answer this question. Do you know how old is Matsumoto when he published Kaiju number 8? If you think he's 32, then you are wrong again. He was 38. He had in fact already toned down the age of Kafka. When the story says this is the last chance for Kafka to chase after his dream, it is in fact saying this is the last chance for Matsumoto to chase after his dream. But in order to answer more precisely why 32, I think we can dig a bit deeper. This is just my speculation, but it was 2014 when Matsumoto hit 32. Do you know what else happened around this time? Jump Plus started to happen. It was created in 2014, and it offers a different working model compared with Weekly Shonen Jump. The most notable difference is it is an online platform. On the surface, it seems inconsequential. If you like a physical copy, you can read Weekly Shonen Jump. If you want to read something from your phone, you can go for Jump Plus. But because Weekly Shonen Jump is a physical copy, that means there is a physical limitation to how many printing paper you can use in one issue. Unfavorable series will need to hand out their place to new manga. It makes the whole place more competitive. and because it comes out weekly, everyone needs to work hard to rush the deadline. The fact that every manga is put into the same issue also limits the type of stories that one can produce, because stories need to have similar aftertaste for it to establish a brand name. On the other hand, since Jump Plus is a digital platform, it can publish infinite amount of stories at the same time. What's more, creator can choose the individual day to publish. There's no need to rush. Most importantly, manga artists have more creative freedom because there's no need for centralized tone. So by creating Jump Plus, it actually saved the career of Matsumoto. His aged body can no longer compete with the highly passionate youngster. He needs a more lenient working environment. He can utilize this opportunity to tell a unique story, a story that only he can tell. This is what the exam extension in Kaiju No. 8 means. The extension of age limit is Jump Plus. This is why I think Matsumoto picking Kafka as like your typical shonen protagonist is a wrong decision. It obfuscates the outlet for Matsumoto to show his true intention. And this is why I think there's a major tone shift in the later part of the story. Remember the list that I've come up with? I was checking the amount of time childish Kafka occurs. But here's the thing, the list actually stopped at episode 9. Suddenly, the story turned serious. So I decided to check the manga to see how long will this last. The anime story stops at chapter 38. And it would take a whopping 28 chapters later for Kafka's unserious expression to resurface. And the childlike behavior only occur again in chapter 67. To understand this tone shift, I need to spoil a bit on what happened at the end of episode 10. In episode 10, Kafka reveals his ability to be a kaiju. Some would say the downhill of the series exactly starts from there. From that point onward, the plot line becomes repetitive. Kaiju comes, characters fight, so on and so forth. There would be a kaiju invasion that lasts for more than 40 chapters. 40 chapters, that's like 1/3 of the whole series. While it happens, character has little to none character development. And during those fights, numerous dangerous situations get resolved by characters awakening their inner power. Meanwhile, Kafka is gone in most of these fights. He barely even shows up to punch enemy. With all that being said, ironically, I think Kafka revealing his identity is the most sincere thing Matsumoto had done for his series. This marked a life-changing moment for Matsumoto, so the tone must be shifted. To comprehend why I say this, I first need to talk about Endo Tatsuya. You know, the guy who writes the stories between an adult male and a long straight black-haired woman, both of which have abnormal capabilities. Most importantly, it has a fluffy animal in it. I'm of course talking about Spy X Family. In a lot of ways, Kaiju No. 8 and Spy X Family should have no resemblance with each other. One is more of a light-hearted comedy, while the other is your typical shonen. And yet, Spy X Family touches upon a lot of things that I've criticized with Kaiju No. 8. It fully utilized the setting of being an adult. It talks about marriage, being a caretaker, and getting a different career. It has all the elements to talk about a serious topic, but it purposely gears toward light-hearted comedy. Like, stories is literally about Cold War and spies, but somehow the show is funny. The most interesting thing, however, happens outside of the story. Both manga became popular around the same time, and both got published on Jump Plus. Matsumoto was inspired by Dragon Ball to make manga. Endo was also inspired by Dragon Ball. Matsumoto has 2 serialized series in the past. Endo also has 2. When Matsumoto was not serializing, he worked as an assistant for others. Same here for Endo. He also worked as an assistant when he was not serializing. Matsumoto had been collaborating with the same editor for his whole career. Endo also has been collaborating with the same editor, from his debut to his latest work. And guess what? Both of these editors are deputy editor-in-chiefs at Jump Plus, and the creation of Kaiju No. 8 and Spy X Family has a lot to do with both editors. It was them who encouraged Matsumoto and Edo, respectively, to serialize their stories. The most insane thing is, Matsumoto and Edo are similar in age. When Kaiju No. 8 was published, Matsumoto was 38. When Spy X Family was published, Edo was 39. It is rare to see creators of this age succeed. But if similarity is all there is, then 50-50 is not probable. Take a look at Edo's work history. You will see that he helped to create series like Attack on Titan and Fire Punch. Those series are quite gritty and dark. They have a similar vibe to Edo's previous stories. Horrific scenes occurs in his previous manga. They are not all fun and sunshine. This is why one of the creator friends commented that Edo has always had a reputation as someone who wrote black comedy. The sort of comedy that is so cynical, it makes you think, is it really okay to laugh at this? There is still some of that in Spy X Family, but there are also comedic elements that anyone can laugh at. There is a clear change of direction here. However, it is hard to say how genuine Edo is for this new path. For example, it was revealed that in the past, Endo disliked creating conventionally good-looking male characters. It was an artistic principle that was understood by no one. To quote Endo's editor, I always tell him, in manga, it's important to have characters who are cool or cute. This topic caused Endo to famously reply, and that's why I have no emotional attachment to my characters, because I had to compromise on so many things. Just to be clear, I don't think he hates his characters. He just feels indifference. So assumes Edo has aimed to create something that matches public perceptions. He factors in marketability and dissociates his own artistic philosophy. No one will truly know why now he changed all of a sudden. One can only suggest, what else can a 40-year-old man sacrifice if not artistic vision? This might be the last chance. It is a very different approach compared with Matsumoto. He has always loved Tokusatsu. He likes the idea where the protagonist gains extraordinary abilities to become a hero and bear the weight of inner struggle. The creation of Kafka embodies the things he likes, and you can sense the close relationship Matsumoto has with this character. The details of Kafka's transformations are beautifully drawn. The panel is electrified with energy. It's not surprising to hear from Matsumoto saying that he struggled to draw monster Kafka the most. When Kafka transforms, his drawing time increases significantly. This is quite ironic when you realize Toriyama Akira, the one who pioneered transformations in shonen, the one who inspired Matsumoto, actually created Super Saiyan so that he can be lazy with his drawing. By now you can see there is a lot of love for Kafka. Even the editor said Kafka carried an atmosphere that linked to Matsumoto when he was first creating the character. I believe this adds an extra layer of passion to the work. He cared this much about Kafka because Kafka is him. There's a reason why Kafka's story starts by working for a cleaning company as an experienced worker. Because Matsumoto is that experienced worker. At that moment in time, he was the assistant assisting other manga artists. He was taking care of what was left behind. He could have never made a name for himself because no matter how good he was still not the one who defeated the monster. This is also why in the story, Kafka is not surprised when he passes the first round of exams. He has passed that in real life. The problem is always the second round. The problem was always seeing your serialized manga fade into obscurity. He is in his 30s now. This really is the one last time. This is why Kafka can use his experience from cleaning company to assist others in defeating monsters. He is using his assistant's experience to create a manga, to tackle this massive project. Even the name Kafka means a lot. It references the real-life writer, Kafka. He wrote the famous novel The Metamorphosis. It's a story about a guy who one day wakes up from his bed and finds himself turned into a monstrous vermin. His family despises him for his transformation because he can no longer work. It doesn't work. He becomes useless. But in Kaiju No. 8, what should not work enables a person to awaken his inner power. Matsumoto wakes up from his bed and his work career is then transformed by a monster. A concept that should not work. It's a transformation story that fights against the odds. It's a perfect material for one type of story. A shonen story. An underdog who uses his last chance to chase after his dream. It is a story about seeing your close friend become successful while you stand behind. It stems from my own life at that time. It is the story of a person who couldn't become what he wanted to be, but lived somewhere close to it and started afresh. This is why revealing the identity of Kafka is crucial. This is the moment when Kaiju No. 8 announces to the whole world, "Mark my face. I am Naoya Matsumoto, the creator of this monster." To quote his editor, "We have considered two directions. One where Kafka leads a normal life while hiding his true identity, and the other where he pursues his dream even after becoming a monster. Either way, it would have resulted in entirely different stories. But based on Matsumoto's wishes, the current direction was chosen. This would have been such a great story if it had gone well. But just like any story, you either end on a high note or find yourself withering to death. After Kafka announces his true power, he suddenly loses his own direction. What's the point of using your old experience, your old tactic to fight, when you can now one-punch your problem? What's the point of emphasizing your experience in assisting when now you have been successfully recognized? You are now too close to your dream. So you let your main character hide in the background while you try to figure out your new source of motivation. You have no choice but to let your side characters appear more and more. But this story has always been a story about you, not others. This is when it dawns on you that you don't know what kind of stories others can tell. You don't see how others tackle their problem. So you give the same solution to everyone. A constant surge of power, a new weapon, a new platform for them to show off. Because deep down you know they all have hidden talent. They just lack the opportunity like you. They all become mini Kafka. They all become Matsumoto. When you don't know what to say, you say what you know. Kaiju No. 8 is a true story about the sad reality that artists have to face. It is a story about someone who stands on the stage just to find out he has no voice to sing. And this is the horror of actually achieving your dream.